Okay, but today I want to focus on Chanukah from a slightly different perspective, and I'm inspired by what Hasidic masters teach us, and that is that when we light the Chanukah candles, we shouldn't just light them robotically and then leave them and think that we just did the mitzvah and we're now good to go and have a good dinner. But rather, we should stay by the candles and then listen to the candles speak to us. Because every candle has its own story, every candle has its own message. So today, I really want to focus on maybe 8 lessons that the candles are whispering to us each and every night of Hanukkah. And of course, if you can derive more lessons from those candles speaking to you, please feel free to share them too. But let's jump immediately to lesson 1. Does anyone want to read? This is again the candles of Hanukkah speaking to us. Lesson 1. Anyone, please. Go for it, Jenna, please.
Not self-obvious. Try this. Sit with your child on your lap and ask him or her, tell me, dear child, do you feel valued? Are you happy? Your child will most likely look at you strangely and say to himself, what do you want from me? Who's thinking about? I'm busy living. That is because children are not preoccupied with themselves, and so they are happy. Sadly, as we age, we become increasingly self-occupied. Some of us even sink so deeply into our self-preoccupation that all we think about is our problems and our needs. This self-preoccupation quickly turns into moans and cries about how miserable life is. Yet, we forget that the more we become other-occupied rather than self-occupied, the happier our lives will be. If we were able to speak to our Hanukkah flames and ask them how they felt, they would probably offer us the same reply as the response of our child. Why? Because their very raison d'etre, is that what I say?
That's right, raison d'etre. I know it's become a part of the English language, but it's French, really. That's right. It's very reason of being, raison d'etre. Yeah.
And that's what makes it right. So have you thought about someone else today to offer them anything, from a smile to a helping hand? Are you occupied with others more than you are occupied with yourself?
Right. So just to broaden this thought, because it really has fascinated me time and time again, that if you think about this, the Torah does not speak about emotions. I would love to know how Abraham felt when he brought his son Isaac to be slaughtered. Eventually, thank God, he was not. But I would have loved to hear from the Torah itself how he felt. I would have loved to hear how Joseph, in this week's portion, feels when he meets his brothers who had sold him into slavery for the first time. He's now the vice king. He recognizes them. They don't recognize him. How does it feel then? No word of any emotion in the Torah. Joseph cries from time to time, but it doesn't speak of his feelings, his sentiments. Why is that? And maybe because the Torah is trying to teach us that at the end of the day, it's not our emotions that count, because our emotions are self-oriented. It's really about our actions, because our actions are other-oriented. And what defines us at the end of the day is not the way we feel, not the moods we're in, not how we woke up in the morning, not what side of the bed did you wake up on, but rather the deeds that you did. What did you do today for someone else? That is really what is going to make your flame shine as the flames of Hanukkah. They are other-oriented. Do they think about themselves? Not really. In fact, if they would think about themselves, they would stop shining, because they would realize that they are losing a little bit of themselves. The wax is being melted. The olive oil is being consumed. So they would immediately stop shining. But that's not the raison d'etre. That's not the reason of being. Just as it should be with us. Our reason of being, it doesn't matter how you feel, whether you two are being consumed, whether your wax is being melted. At the end of the day, if you want to shine, if you want your flame to continue to shine for generations, be other-oriented. And that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, unless, again, I want to open this up. So if anyone has any comments, disagreements, or ideas or thoughts, feel free to share them. But otherwise, let's go to lesson number 2, which is really based on, before we actually read it, on this argument in the Talmud. It's a fascinating argument, and on the surface, it doesn't seem too relevant, because the Talmud asks the question, are you allowed to use one candle of Chanukah in order to light another candle. Say you don't have the shamash, that candle that lights others. Are you allowed to use the third candle in order to light the fourth candle or not? So there's an argument. One opinion says, Hillel says no. No, sorry, Hillel says yes, Shammai says no. And in fact, this is one of the only times in which we follow the opinion of Shammai, who's usually more strict than the opinion of Hillel. Hillel says yes, Shammai says no. Hillel says yes because his argument is what we're learning about, and that is that when one uses his light in order to kindle another light, your light is not affected by it. The end result is that you have more light in the world. So why not? Shammai says no, because it's not respectful to the Chanukah candle to use it for another candle. Let it shine alone. Every candle has its own purpose. Let that purpose really focus on its uniqueness. We follow Shammai, but the argument of Hillel is the one I want to focus on. Indeed, when we light others, we may think, after all, I've now wasted my time. I've wasted my energy. I've lost something. That may be true with material possessions, but it's not true with spiritual possessions. The more you share your spiritual gifts, the more they are enhanced, the more you multiply them. This is what this lesson is all about. Let's continue with lesson 2 here, which is a lesson that is also learned from the Shamash. Does anyone want to read? Anyone? Anyone? Don't be shy. Please, Lisa, go for it. Mm-hmm. Right.
The more food we give away, the extra But when we share spiritual values, we gain so much more. When we share our wisdom, we become even wiser. When we use our hearts to give and to love, we become more giving and loving. When we feel a broken spirit and use the flame of our soul to ignite and to elevate our soul, our life becomes better.
Right. And that's a powerful and a very true lesson. I want to connect it to a thought that we shared a few months ago. But it's interesting because in Hebrew, there are 2 major words for happiness, right? One is simcha, and the other one is osher. And we find them both in Jewish prayer, in the Torah, for example, ashrei yoshvei v'techa, right? Joyful are the ones who dwell in your home. Osher is one, simcha is another. What's the difference between the two? Osher is happiness that we feel. Aleph, Vav, Shin, Reish. Asher can mean Osher, come from Osher, that's right. That's the root word, right? Every Hebrew word has a root word. So Aleph, Shin, Reish are the 3 root letters of Osher. Osher is joy, and Simcha would say is happiness. What's the difference between the two? Osher, joy, is happiness that we feel. But that's entirely dependent on the outside. If I go to a concert, I feel happy. If I won the lottery, I feel happy. If I get good news, I feel happy. But all that is coming from outside, from outward to inward. Simcha is happiness not that we feel, that we do. When I do happiness, when I bring this to a patient that's sick, and I just did happiness because I created happiness for someone else, it makes me happy. So, and that is entirely dependent on me. It's not dependent on how good the concert was or how much money I won in the lottery. It's dependent fully on my ability to get out of my bed and go do some good in the world. The more happiness we do, the more simcha we receive. That's another lesson from the Chanukah candles. The Chanukah candles are there to do happiness, not to feel happiness, to do happiness by shining their own lights. The more we do happiness, the more we feel happiness, the more our happiness is also enhanced. You know, I say this to a lot of teenagers, very often it's teenagers, but others too. And very often when you feel so down and your default is to think about yourself, analyze your emotions, and I'm not saying that's wrong. Sometimes you do need that. Sometimes you do need therapists, and sometimes you may have You may need some clinical diagnosis and resolution. But very often, the solution is much simpler. Go and visit the sick. Go and visit the senior citizens. Go and do a mitzvah. Go and help your brother or your sister or your parents. Go do something good for someone else. Simcha. Go do happiness. And you'll realize that whatever mood you were in beforehand, all of a sudden dissipated. Why? Because that's the power of shining. That's the power of doing happiness. When you do happiness, something of that act, of that deed, maybe the holiness within that happiness, all of a sudden is synchronized with the holiness that you have within. And it almost reveals it. And then all of a sudden you feel, oh, okay, now I'm back to my true self. My true self was holy. I did a holy act that reminded me of who I am. That's simcha. And that's what we should achieve. Not osher, but simcha that is entirely dependent on us, just like the Chanukah flames. That's lesson 2. Lesson 3. Does anyone want to read lesson 3? Yeah, of course you are. You're also allowed to disagree. Please. Okay. Yes, go for it, Lisa. Yes. Yeah. That's right. No, put me on the spot. Go for it. So it's interesting because actually, if you analyze this, when we use the word ashrei or osher, it's very much in the context of other things that make me happy. So when I dwell in God's house, I have osher. It's God's house making me happy. Simchat Torah, simcha, is actually used in the context of me creating this happiness. I dance with the Torah, and the Torah then is happy with me, and I'm happy with the Torah. So it really fine-tunes the meaning of those two words. Simcha, you'll notice, is very often used even in the Torah, v'samachta b'chagecha, for example, that one should be happy during the holiday. How are you happy? By actually, in the times of the temple, we would go up as pilgrims to the holy temple. We would have to get out of that bed and actually perform that action. It wasn't dependent on the outside. It was dependent on my doing. And that's how simcha and osher really are differentiated in the Torah. So, point. Good question. Yes. Except for the shamash. You're right. All the 8 candles have to be the same height, except for the shamash, the candle that is not part of the mitzvah really. And that's also part of the reason why we differentiate it. Why? It's on a different level. Because it's not part of the mitzvah itself. But in most menorahs, you'll notice it is higher. Because as the Rebbe again teaches, when you light others, you become elevated. Yeah. Yes.
I've heard different ways to, do you light from right to left or left to right, and why? When you're facing the Chanukah.
So you light from left to right. That is because you want to give precedence to the night that you're lighting. So if tonight is 4, right? We light 4 candles tonight. Then the 4th candle takes precedence because that's the night that we're in. And then you go to the rest. When you set it up, you also want to set it up from right to left because that's how they would set it up also in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. So we try to emulate, and that's why we use olive oil, for example, better than candles. You can use candles, but olive oil is considered better because that's how they did it in the temple. The more we can emulate the menorah in the temple, the better it is. Yeah, sure. Good question. Any other questions? Feel free, really. Please. A few times. I don't know how many times exactly. You can chat GPT it and tell us. I don't know if it'll be accurate, but you can tell us. That you commanded to be happy? Absolutely. You are. You are. In fact, happiness is one of the most moral obligations in Judaism. You have to be happy as you have to wake up in the morning. One of the most striking in the Torah, speaking about it, one striking points in which this is mentioned is in the portion of Kitavo, which is the portion of curses. And there are some horrific curses that are mentioned there. And at the very, very end, it says that these curses will befall you, tachat asher lo avadat et Hashem b'simcha v'tuv levav, because you did not worship God with happiness and goodness of heart. So when you have happiness and goodness of heart, it makes you immune almost, not completely, but immune to curses. Yeah. And it's a moral obligation because, my good friend Dennis Prager, Hashem should bless him with a full and speedy recovery, Shmuel Nechemia ben Hinda should have his name. He would say that it's almost as important as having good breath. When you have bad breath, it bothers people. Well, when you're not happy, it also bothers people because you emanate that energy. So you have to be careful. Okay, lesson 3. Lesson 3. Does anyone want to read? Please, Andrea, go for it.
Often contraries are enlightened evidence because our thoughts and conditions are found. Yet we forget that what makes us feel free is our ability to look and be present. We may at times say to ourselves, this is the way I was born, and this is the way I will always be. But our wonderful things remind us that our complaining nature and the offers of pure and perfect, things that lead to pleasing heavenward, and allow the religious power of our potential and the divine flows of our sex.
Okay, beautiful. Yes, it's an important lesson, especially today when all of us are looking what? Instead of heavenward, we're always looking downwards. If you think about this, we're looking at this gadget, looking downwards all the time. Back in the day, at least we would look forward to the sceneries, to the mountains, to Camelback Mountain, and so on. Today, we're looking this way. Why? And by the way, this is also why many people have back problems today. I remember reading statistics about this, and I don't want to make a mistake. Again, we can ask ChatGPT. But today, since the phone came out, since the cell phone came out, not the big ones when they first came out because no one would use them, but the smaller ones, there has been an increase of about 60% of back pains reported than there was beforehand. And most of them are due to this, to us looking downwards all the time. And they say that it's like having 60 pounds on your shoulders, right? Can anyone confirm that for me now? That's what they say. And therefore, this lesson is even more important because physically, we should be more upright. We should look more heavenward. But spiritually, even more so. We should look heavenward to remind us that there is more to this world that we know, that we live in a 2 or even 3-dimensional life. It's not just about what we see, it's about what we don't see. It's about the heavens. It's about God being with us at all times. Looking heavenwards creates this idea. This is also why, and you'll confirm if I'm wrong or if I'm right, but this is also why it's fascinating. If you go to the holy cities of Israel with our many cemeteries of righteous people who passed centuries ago, you'll see that their tombstones are painted in blue. In Tzfat, right? For example, even in Har Zaitim, Mount of Olives, the tombstones of the righteous are painted in blue. Apparently, this stemmed from Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the foremost Kabbalist, who asked for his tombstone to be painted in blue. Why? Because he said that when people visit my tombstone, I want them to think of the heavens. The sky, the heavens are painted in blue, so maybe this will cause them to think of the heavens too. To know that they may be sad, but they're not alone. God is there with them. And that in and of itself will strengthen them. So that's the idea here. And this is how the flames face. They face upwards. In fact, if you look at the flame, it's constantly flickering to divorce itself from its wick so that it can just dissipate upwards and go back to its source, to its heavenly source, so to speak. This is also why the soul of man is compared to a candle. This comes from the book of Proverbs. It says, Ner Hashem nishmat adam, but we have a soul within that is compared to a candle. This is also why when there's a yahrzeit, we light candles to remind us of the soul. Now, why is the soul compared to a candle? Because that's what the soul wants to do. Do you think the soul wants to eat ice cream all day long? You think the soul wants a good spa all day long? You think the soul wants to go shopping all day long? The soul wants to connect to its source. The soul wants to do good, The soul wants to be heavenly. And sometimes the body limits it. But the soul is like a candle that constantly flickers. It's restless. It wants to do good. It wants to act heavenly. It wants to do simcha. It wants all these things. But sometimes we don't let it. And here, the Chanukah candles remind us, just be like that flame. Remember, you have a flame within you. So activate it too, so that it can illuminate the world by always flickering upwards. Okay, that's lesson 3. Lesson 4. Does anyone want to read? Anyone else? Yes, please, go for it.
This is the advice of our great Rabbi Allouche rabbi gave to 2 Jewish leaders who came and asked him for blessings on September 28, 1987. The Rebbe also explained his advice with a resounding statement. Every living thing must grow, he explained, from strength to strength. Our Chanukah flames also radiate this message. Ignite them and you will see them grow with tireless persistence. Gaze at them and you will appreciate their unquenchable thirst to burn on their unwavering determination. This is what makes them shine, and this is what can make us shine too. So this Hanukkah, let us commit ourselves to grow in all good ways possible. Let us take upon ourselves one more mitzvah and let us shine.
Right, and I think that this is what really most giants had in common, that they were never satisfied with their deeds of yesterday. They always sought to increase more and more. I remember going to my beloved Rabbi Adin Stein's, also blessed memory, when he was 76 or 77 years old. And I walked into his office and we spoke. And I said to him, "No, are you going to rest any day?" He said, "Rest? I have plans in my drawers right here for the next 170 years. Next 170 years." And he said to me, "I don't show them to anybody because people will think that I'm crazy." But that's really one of the great ingredients that every giant had. They knew that as long as they're alive, they must add more and more. You can never be satisfied about what you did yesterday. The Lubavitcher Rebbe once said that if you're ever called old, then you should use this. My kids call me old now, and I use this all the time. But he said that the difference between a young person and an old person is not in their age. You know what the difference is? The definition of young and the definition of old? Does anyone have an idea? Wisdom, okay, experience, wisdom. But then you're old. But I want to prove to my kids that I'm not old. So I don't use that. So
Tell them they'll be at your age really soon.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said. And I think it's just so true and so brilliant. He said the difference is that what? Young and hot? Okay, so how do you define that? This is how you define this. That they ask the same question. They say the same thing, but in a very different way. The old man says, "What have I achieved?" The young man says, "What have I yet to achieve?" That's the difference between an old man and a young man. If you're old and you say, "Okay, I've arrived, that's it. Now I can just, like Mark Twain said that when he dies, he wants to first move to Manchester. Is anyone from Manchester here? Good. Because he said, and I asked him why Manchester? He says, like this, the transition to death will be smoother. Manchester is that type of city. But some people, that's how they're old, right? That's why they're old. Okay, let me just go to Manchester and that's it. If you're young, you could be 90 years old. You could be 100 years old. As long as you know that you still have more to achieve, that you like the Chanukah candles, then you're young. And that's what I tell my children. They don't always buy it, but that's what I tell them anyhow. All right, lesson 5. Lesson 5. Anyone to shine? Please, Andrew, I'll go for it. Continue, please. Mm-hmm.
His father would admonish him for doing something wrong. His father would never label him in degrading terms. For example, his father would never say to him that he is a bad boy. all the scholar would say is it is our Hanukkah flames remind us that we too occupy the darkness by igniting the same bright flame of love, faith, and hope. Darkness will then immediately vanish. As Rabbi Allouche, we always taught, a little bit of light can dispel a lot.
Right. And I think this is one of the more important lessons here, because darkness, as they say, is not fought with brooms and sticks. Darkness is fought with light. But the light doesn't really it's not focused on the darkness. It just wants to light. It just wants to bring happiness. Again, do simcha. That's all. And I think this is a powerful lesson for how to deal with darkness from within or from without, in education or even just in spiritual matters. Sometimes all you need to do is increase your light, and then the darkness will fade away. You know, scientifically, darkness has zero entity. It's nothing. It's just the absence of light. That's what darkness is, which means that in order to get rid of darkness, you just have to increase the light, and then darkness will go away. And I think this is one of the great lessons of our generation. We're experts. Think about this. We're experts at fighting the bad, fighting darkness. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but everyone is an expert in fighting racism and bigotry and sexism and you name it. But what about the light within? What about teaching your children the 10 Commandments? What about increasing that light? And I am sure that if every home, every human being would infuse that home or their children with good values, with the light of our heritage, then there would be no bad in the world. Then you can defund the police. Until then, you can't. But if everyone would be good, if everyone would be a flame of goodness, then there really would be no bad in the world. That's where it starts. And this is what this message is all about, really. You work on yourself, on your light, and you'll see then that the bad will go away. And it's very much connected to what we said before. You're in a bad mood. Go do a mitzvah. You'll see that just the ignition of that mitzvah will go make that bad mood go away. That's how God fights light, and that's how we ought to fight light. Just by being more good, by increasing the light, and then that absence of light, darkness itself will go away. Really? Milwaukee?
No.
Oh, okay, there's one in Denver, that's right. This Tversky was in Milwaukee. He passed away not too long ago, also about 6-7 years ago, maybe less. But he was also one of the great psychiatrists of our generation. He wrote many, many books. His expertise was addictions. And I would recommend everyone to read his books. Yeah, well, that was his expertise. He was truly, truly brilliant. And I think this advice is also so enlightening. You don't tell your children you're bad boys. Then you've succumbed to darkness. That's what you've done. You're bad. Okay, now you're part of darkness. Instead, you say to them, you're such a light. How can you be doing something so dark? It's a whole different approach. And that in of itself increases the light again, and it makes the darkness go away. Then the child feels validated. Feels like, okay, I'm a light, really? Oh, thank you. And then he's almost forced to behave like a light because you've just told him that he's a light. That's lesson 5. Let's go to lesson 6. Let's go. 6. To shine is to forgive and forget. Please, Sue, go for it.
That they direct themselves solely upward towards the future. In order to fulfill the purpose for which they were created, the sun and bright. So it's something that's pulling you back. Learn from your competition. Forgive, forget, and your life. The world and God.
Right, and the reason for that is because we often forget what is very clear, and that is that hatred hurts the hater the most, and it hurts the hater the most because it's the toxicity of keeping a grudge just extinguishes that flame, or at least suffocates it. And here the Chanukah candles teach us, all right, there are all sorts of winds, all sorts of storms that may want to extinguish. You just have to do what you have to do. Shine the light, forgive and forget. So what? If it was preoccupied with the winds, it would blow itself out immediately. But it's not. It wants to shine its light so that it doesn't that the winds go away, that the darkness goes away. And so it is with us. Just have to learn to forgive and forget. It's, by the way, an integral part of Judaism. But every single evening, during the bedtime Shema, we've said this many times, there's a prayer that's called, I call it the let go prayer, in which we say to God, whatever happened today, I let go of. If someone hurt me, if someone hurt me emotionally, physically, it doesn't matter. I'm letting go. Why? Because you cannot say hello to the freedom of tomorrow if you did not say goodbye to the hatred of today. If you want to wake up fresh tomorrow, say goodbye to the resentment of today. Say that let go prayer. You'll wake up tomorrow, new, fresh, ready to shine your light, ready to embrace the opportunities of tomorrow. Otherwise, it will pull you, and the toxicity can even suffocate you. 7 and 8. Let's do that because I have to go very soon. Okay, let's do 7. 7. Great spirits. Does anyone want to read? 7. Lesson number 7. Please, Andrew, go for it.
All to leave the comfort of birthday and love, but to let it be out of the world of the beliefs of God in one another. Moses rebukes the Lord of Christ of his people, and in spite of the many challenges he faced, he assumes the role of the nation's free leader, and he rescued them from the bondage to freedom. Paradise Fever was whose Israel illiterate, and he was disowned by his father. Yet he dedicated himself to Torah study, and became one of Judaism's most illuminating texts. The resilience of its models and the knowledge that the gifts of death stems from the greatest challenge, affirmed by the loyalty to the human cause, sending to the beacons of life to their survival. So too, it is with our Moshe things. Darkness does not wisdom, quite the opposite. Darkness accepts us as a consequence of the world, with even a
Right. I think that lesson speaks for itself, but I just want to conclude with reiterating or echoing the words of one of the great heroes of our modern heroes of our people, and I'm referring to Hirsch Goldberg, Poland Goldberg, Poland first, and then Goldberg. Poland Goldberg, Hirsch Poland Goldberg, one of the hostages who was severely injured on October 7th, and then he was held captive in Gaza for many months. And in August of 2024, they murdered him along with 6 of his friends who were kept captive with him at point blank. And a video footage of Hirsch and his friends just came out this past Thursday night. I'm sure you've seen it. And if you haven't, then maybe look it up, or maybe it's too traumatic. But in that video footage, you see Hirsch lighting the menorah in the tunnels of Gaza with his friends. They made a makeshift menorah with cups upside down, and they brought 2 candles. They had asked 2 candles from Hamas terrorists, one for the first night of Chanukah, and one for the Shamash, the candle that lights other candles. And you just see their tremendous resilience. They start cracking joke. One says, when are the donuts coming? The other one says, well, they're Roladin, which is a big donut company or bakery company in Israel, is bringing them soon. And then the other one says, let's make a wish. The candles are lighting. And you can see that even the candles themselves are being lit, but they have to light them again and again because there's no oxygen in the tunnels. And you see them celebrating Chanukah in the face of this horrific evil, because they knew, as we all know today, that if we dare to light a flame, regardless of the tunnel that we're in, that flame eventually will prevail. They are no longer with us, these holy hostages, but their spirit, their flame is very much here. And as long as we can connect to that flame from within, not from without, from within, and be the lights, do that simcha, and continue to indeed illuminate the world and grow from strength to strength, then nothing, no darkness in the world will ever be able to overcome us, and we will prevail.